Today, African American sailors serve with a profound legacy behind them, reflecting the valiant efforts and sacrifices made by their predecessors throughout the history of the U.S. Navy. From the early days of the Continental Navies to the present, African Americans have played pivotal roles, both at sea and ashore, contributing significantly to the Navy's mission and forging paths in roles previously unattainable. During the Civil War, 8 black sailors were awarded the Medal of Honor, exemplifying extraordinary valor and commitment. Notable figures like Dick Henry Turpin emerged as symbols of resilience and courage. Turpin, one of the survivors of the explosion aboard the battleship Maine, and others laid the foundation for generations of African American sailors. In World War I, the Navy saw the enlistment of 14 black female yeomen who participated actively in supporting naval operations, breaking racial and gender barriers. This period marked the beginning of a gradual shift towards greater inclusivity within the Navy. World War II further catalyzed this change as the Navy began to train a generation of African American officers and enlisted personnel who would provide critical leadership during the Cold War. This era set the stage for the eventual integration of the Navy, which would be solidified by President Harry S. Truman's Executive Order 9981 in 1948. This landmark order abolished racial discrimination in the U.S. Armed Forces, leading to significant policy changes across the military branches. The integration of the Navy was not just a shift in policy, but a transformative movement that opened doors for numerous African American trailblazers. These trailblazers included Vice Admiral Samuel L. Gravely, Jr., the first African American to command a Navy ship, and Wesley A. Brown, the first African American graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. Their achievements were complemented by groundbreaking appointments like that of Master Chief Petty Officer April D. Beldo, reflecting the evolving opportunities within the Navy. Throughout the latter half of the 20th century and into the 21st, African Americans have continued to excel in the Navy, commanding ships, submarines, and shore establishments. The Navy has commemorated their contributions by naming several ships in honor of distinguished African American sailors, such as USS Oscar Austin and USNS Carl Brashear, celebrating their legacy and inspiring future generations. This ongoing journey reflects not only the challenges overcome by African American sailors, but also their enduring impact on the U.S. Navy. Their story is one of courage, perseverance, and an unwavering commitment to service, echoing the Navy's core values and its promise of equality and respect for all its members. As the Navy looks to the future, the contributions of African American sailors will undoubtedly continue to shape its identity and capabilities. Building on the foundations laid during the Revolutionary War and subsequent conflicts, African Americans continued to make significant contributions to the U.S. Navy, particularly noted during the Civil War. Their participation during this tumultuous period in American history was marked by remarkable bravery and a strong desire for freedom and equality. Notably, 8 African American sailors earned the prestigious Medal of Honor for their heroic deeds, showcasing their critical roles and valor in battle. Despite these acts of valor, the journey of African American sailors was fraught with systemic challenges, most poignantly, the harsh realities of segregation. During the early years, segregation policies were rigorously enforced within the Navy, limiting African Americans to certain roles, often menial and less recognized compared to their white counterparts. These policies not only restricted their occupational roles, but also curtailed the recognition they duly deserved. The impact of these segregation policies became even more pronounced during World War I and World War II. Throughout these conflicts, African American sailors were often relegated to roles such as cooks, stewards, or other service-oriented positions, rather than combat roles which offered more significant opportunities for recognition and advancement. This limited scope not only affected their career progression within the Navy, but also reflected the broader societal attitudes towards race at the time. During World War II, however, the Navy began to plant seeds for what would eventually lead to greater racial integration. This was a period of significant contradiction, where the demand for manpower made it necessary to utilize all available resources, including African American sailors, Yet segregation policies still maintained a strong hold, reflecting the ongoing struggle for racial equality. The culmination of these efforts and the changing tide of racial policies in the Navy would eventually lead to President Harry S. Truman's historic Executive Order 9981 in 1948, which desegregated the armed forces. This order marked a pivotal shift towards equality, setting the stage for a more inclusive Navy where the contributions of all sailors were recognized irrespective of their race. As the Navy moved forward from the shadows of segregation, the contributions of African American sailors began to receive the recognition they deserved, transforming not only their roles within the Navy, but also setting a precedent for the armed forces and the nation at large. This transformation was critical not only to the evolution of the Navy, but also to the broader civil rights movements across the United States. The transformative momentum towards racial integration within the U.S. Navy gained significant ground following President Harry S. Truman's Executive Order 9981 in 1948, which mandated the desegregation of the armed forces. This pivotal mandate marked a definitive break from the long-standing segregation policies, initiating a period of substantial, albeit gradual, change across the military branches. The path to integration, however, was met with mixed responses. While the Navy had historically integrated to some degree, primarily out of operational necessity, the formal policy of desegregation brought both challenges and opportunities. The Navy, more accommodating compared to other branches, still faced hurdles in fully realizing the President's directive. The initial response involved the slow dismantling of segregated units and the integration of African American sailors into all facets of naval operations. This period also saw the emergence of key figures who would come to symbolize the progress in integration within the Navy. Notable among them was Wesley A. Brown, who became the first African American graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy in 1949. His graduation was not just a personal achievement, but a landmark moment for the Navy, reflecting the slow but steady progress towards racial equality. Another significant figure was Samuel L. Gravely, Jr., who achieved multiple firsts in his naval career. He became the first African American to command a Navy ship, and later, the first African American to achieve the rank of Vice Admiral. Gravely's illustrious career served as a beacon of what was possible for African Americans in the Navy post-desegregation, highlighting the breaking of racial barriers and the potential for equal opportunity. The challenges these pioneers faced were formidable. They contended with racial prejudice and systemic barriers that sought to undermine their authority and capabilities. However, their resilience and dedication to duty paved the way for future generations of sailors, contributing to a more inclusive and equitable Navy. As the Navy continued to implement the integration policy, the establishment of the President's Committee on Equality of Treatment and Opportunity in the Armed Services played a crucial role. This committee was instrumental in overseeing the integration process, ensuring that the principles of fairness and equal opportunity were upheld across all levels of military operations. The journey towards a fully integrated Navy was a reflection of the broader civil rights movement in America. Each milestone achieved within the Navy not only represented progress within the military, but also mirrored the societal shifts towards racial equality and justice in the United States. As the Navy moved forward, the legacy of its African American sailors and officers continued to inspire and shape its commitment to diversity and inclusion.